Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye. Thank you very much. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 2, text number 47. If you remember, the previous verses, Krishna indicated that one who understands the purpose of the Vedas, the Vedanta, to him, all the purposes of the Vedas are served. So that person he was described as Brahmanasya Vijanataha. Brahmanasya Vijanataha. So this person who understands the purpose of the Vedas, in this verse, text 47, Krishna does something very interesting. He spells out exactly what is the symptom of a person who understands the purpose of the Vedas. This is something very specific. It's actually very surprising because oftentimes people think that it's hard to tell whether somebody understands or doesn't understand the purpose of the Vedas. How do you tell? How do you tell the mind of somebody? Krishna does. He says there's something very specific. And it comes down to a very practical measure. It comes down to the ability to do one's duty, prescribed duty. Karmani. The word Krishna uses karmani. Now, before I even begin the verse, I have to tell you these points. They're very interesting. And it's important that you pay attention in order to appreciate the verse when we speak it. So, Brahmanasya Vijanata, the person who understands the purpose of the Vedas, is a person who executes his prescribed duty. But he does it in a certain fashion. He is able to do it whilst avoiding any personal ideas about that work. There are three such ideas that he avoids. He avoids three specific mistakes one can do whilst performing his duties. One is that he hopes for a certain outcome from his duty. This is the result I would like. Otherwise I would not do my duty. That's one mistake. In other words, if a person has such an expectation, anticipation, he is not Brahmanasya Vijanata. He hasn't understood the purpose of the Vedas. Secondly, is a person who executes his duty, but he doesn't think he is in control of the outcome. Okay? In other words, he doesn't think he has the power to influence events. In other words, he's very humble. He doesn't have an arrogant idea of his duty. He does not, for example, think or say to others, do you know who I am? Meaning, I can do something. I can make you or I can break you. I'm influential. No, he doesn't think that. If he does, he is not Brahmanasya Vijanata. And thirdly, he is not In Hindi we say lapravai. He is not neglectful. Obviously. So these three provisos have to be there. Now, there's another question that arises amongst devotees who chant the holy name, who worship the deity. And that is, why are we learning about prescribed duties? We're engaged in bhakti, pure devotional activities, shravanam kirtanam. Now, first thing a devotee should do, he should know that this is Lord Krishna who is speaking. His worshipable deity is speaking this. He is giving importance to prescribed duties. The person you are offering your pure devotional service to is speaking about karmani, prescribed duties. So the devotee should pay attention. Why is it? Why is my Lord emphasizing? So I'll tell you why. We won't, in this class we try not to leave mysteries. We try to answer mysteries, not to make mysteries. The answer is very simple. First, when you are confused, like Arjuna was, you have to understand you are not the... Yes. Everyone has to now, when I ask you, you say, you speak, everybody. Means everybody. So you're not the body. If you're confused in life, it means you think you are the body. So Krishna explained very elaborately, Dehina asmin yathade. You're not this body. So now, Krishna feels that a person who is just coming out of the bodily concept of life, he should understand that he should do activities not based on the body. You're not the body, so you cannot act for the body. So that's the next step. Krishna is elevating us step by step by step. We should not jump. If I have just, it's a bit like a diseased person who is coming out of, he's getting better. You don't immediately make him go into the Olympics. You step by step build up his health. He starts to get out of bed, walk around, before he starts running. So the first step, Krishna feels a person who has been living a life of bodily concept of life, he should understand the idea of prescribed duties. Before he can understand the Olympics, which is devotional service, bhakti yoga. So this is where some of the difficulty takes place. Somebody tries to do bhakti yoga when he still is not getting over the idea of the bodily concept of life. He still is anchored with that problem. Okay. So now you may ask, well, karmani is not the same as bhakti. Okay, so this text 47 is about karmani, but text 48, Krishna makes a link. He makes a link. So I'm not going to tell you. We'll get there. Just after this verse, we will be there. So this verse reads, Karmani eva adhikaraste. The word is used adhikar. We're going to explain that. Karmani eva adhikaraste. Ma phaleshu kadachana. So you have an adhikar to karmani, but three ma. Ma means not. Ma phaleshu kadachana. Ma karma phala heturbhu. Ma te sanga astu akarmani. Three prohibitions. Okay. Adhikar is like a right. Prabhupada writes in word for word, adhikar means right. It also means a claim. You have a claim, you have a privilege, you have ownership, you have authority. That's called adhikar. On what? Karmani. performing your prescribed duties. However, because you're a Brahmanasya Vijanata who understands the purpose of the Vedas, there are three things you do not do. Ma phaleshu. You're not interested in the fruits, good, bad or ugly. Ma karma phala hetu. Hetu means the cause of the result. Means, do not think you will make a difference or things depend upon you. You know, I said this before, but I'll repeat it again. Brahmananda Prabhu, some decades ago, back in Bhaktisiddhanta Manor, he gave a class and he said, this movement is not going on because of you. He said it's going on in spite of you. That's very humbling. Okay. But so, and Krishna is saying this. Ma karma phala hetu. Do not think you are the hetu, the cause. Ma te sanga astu. Do not be attached akarmani. Don't be lazy. Don't be negligent. Don't be whimsical. In other words, do it. Whilst you're not attached to the fruits, whilst you're not the cause of the fruits, don't be attached to not doing it. Some people say, well, I'm not going to get the laddus from this world. Why should I do it? No, do it. Now I'll give you one nice example, everyday example, in our experience, where this happens all the time. You have a bank clerk, right? A bank clerk who gives money, takes money, puts it in your account or takes it out. So if he takes money, does he become richer? No. If he does, then something corrupt going on. But a nice bank clerk, it makes no difference. He's not attached to the RESUL results. Thank you. He's not attached. And he doesn't think, because I was wearing a special aftershave, you deposited more money. He doesn't think he's the cause of your deposit or your withdrawal. It's nothing to do with him. He's just a bank clerk. So all activities can be done in this mood, in this understanding. You can kill. Krishna is telling Arjuna, you can kill without thinking you're the cause, without thinking that victory is desirable or defeat is desirable, and without also being negligent, lethargic, lazy. All three things are covered. Now, the other point is that just remember the importance of karmani, prescribed duties. What is the importance? For people who chant Hare Krishna, who perform devotional service. We use the word karmani, but Krishna, as we will, if you listen to Bhagavad Gita carefully, that is the preliminary form of devotional service. It takes the form of prescribed duties. Therefore, prescribed duties is very important even for a devotee. It's the preliminary form. It's the first manifestation that somebody understands the idea of devotional service. Devotional service, so to speak, in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, is not that easy. It's not that cheap. You know what Krishna says in the 7th chapter? Manushanam sahasreshu kaschid. Hardly anybody is to be found. And then another progression. Hardly somebody amongst the perfect knows me in truth. Hardly. So it is rare. And its genesis, its beginning, is in prescribed duties. Prescribed duties, their genesis is in the idea that you are not the body. Because when you think you're the body, you do everything for the body. But when you understand I'm not the body, that calculation goes away. Now, Srila Prabhupada, I believe I did not read the translation. Translation: you have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. Okay. Now, so in the first part of the purport, Prabhupada defines and explains the word karma. There are three considerations here: prescribed duties, capricious work, and inaction. So in order to describe prescribed duties, Prabhupada is giving the background of all kinds of activities that fall into three categories: prescribed, capricious, or inaction. Then he explains each of them. Prescribed duties are activities enjoined in terms of one's acquired modes of material nature. Capricious work means actions without the sanction of authority. And inaction means not performing one's prescribed duties. So we should be clear. Every activity is not prescribed duty. Some activity may be capricious, whimsical. You understand the word capricious? Anybody who doesn't, put your hand up. Capricious means, it comes from the word caprice. It's Italian, Latin word. When somebody does something unpredictable but also whimsical, without any rhyme or reason. Just like somebody says, I feel like eating, I feel like sleeping, I feel. When you say I feel, that's called capricious. You're going by your feelings. Your feelings change. So Prabhupada defines capricious work as that activity which is without the sanction of authority. In other words, you are the authority. When you are the authority, that's called capricious work. And inaction does not mean a person who is resting, sitting down. It means somebody who avoids doing what he's supposed to be doing. In other words, he might even excuse me, he might even be busy, but if he's not doing his prescribed duty, that may be called inaction. Now, the word inaction has two variations. One is where there's no result. That's different. But right now, it's speaking of a person who is inattentive to his duties. So Prabhupada then elaborates on the fact that Arjuna should not be inactive, that he should perform his prescribed duty without being attached to the result. And then Prabhupada explains about the karma phala hetu bhu, that one should not be attached to the result, and one should not think himself the cause of the action. Now, I'd like to explain a little bit about cause of action. When you desire some fruit, just like let's say you want a cricket match. Cricket is the national game of India, I believe. So you think, the cricket player thinks, I did it. My good bowling, my good batting my good field, it was the cause of victory. So the desire for victory makes you the cause. Okay? You become attached. You become attached to the result. So don't think the idea of being a cause of a certain result is just, it's actually very meaningful. It's explaining our psychology, where we are invested in everything we do. And that confirms your bodily concept of life. When you're attached to results, that means you go back to the bodily concept of life. Because the body would like, there are things the body likes and there are things the body does not like. So that bodily concept of life is our problem. We have to get free. And you can only get free by performing prescribed duties without being attached, without having the desire for a certain result. Prabhupada writes, as far as prescribed duties are concerned, they can be fitted into further 3 subdivisions. 1, routine work, 2, emergency work, and 3, desired activities. So prescribed duty has 3 different categories, 3 divisions: routine, emergency, and desirable. Now Prabhupada explains these 3. Routine work performed as an obligation in terms of scriptural injunctions without desire for results is action in the mode of goodness. Work with results, well, that's going back into capricious and inaction. So then there is emergency work. So there's routine work, means what we're regularly expected to do. But sometimes there's an emergency. It's what's called in English exception to the rule. Is there anybody who doesn't understand the word exception to the rule? Do you understand or you don't? Everyone understands. That's good. So the exception to the rule does not make it the rule. It's emergency. You have to, normally you do things on a certain regulated pattern, but if there's a fire, you change. Immediately you drop everything, you get water and put the fire out. You call the fire brigade, so emergency. But emergency not necessarily always because there's a fire, but something unexpected happens. You have to change your activities. And then there's desirable activities. But in common, all 3 have one thing in common, which is that you work without the desire for results. Okay? Prabhupada then says, therefore such work is auspicious. Otherwise, it's inauspicious because it causes bondage. Everyone has his proprietary right in regard to prescribed duties, but should act without attachment to the result. Such disinterested, obligatory duties doubtlessly lead one to the path of liberation. So this is the point of prescribed duties. Brahmanasya vijanata is to become liberated. In other words, it's not a mistake. There's a great purpose behind it. Somebody may say, I'm a fool for not taking advantage of opportunities to increase my wealth, to enjoy more. You see, people think these are called opportunities. However, the real purpose of work is to become liberated. The object of life or activities in life is not sense gratification. If you work in this fashion, you will become liberated. This is the amazing art of work. Krishna uses that phrase later on, the art of work. Arjuna's non-participation in the battle is another side of attachment. Such attachment never leads one to the path of salvation. Any attachment, positive or negative, is cause for bondage. If you like something, that's attachment. If you say, I don't like something, that's also attachment. Now, inaction is sinful. So, aside from being attached, which is bad, being inactive is altogether worse. In other words, you may be attached to a result, but if you're lazy, that's worse than even being attached to a certain result. Inaction is sinful. Therefore, fighting as a matter of duty was the only auspicious path of salvation for Arjuna. So the implication here is that whenever we have some consideration of profit or loss, even from a Vedic point of view, it will mislead us on what we should do and what we shouldn't do. Arjuna was making his argument that this will not benefit us. This war will not benefit us. Profit and loss. He's not considering liberation. He's not considering that he's not the body. He's thinking, my body will not be happy. I will have no friends to enjoy this world with. What will I do with the kingdom? Everyone will be dead. So this kind of calculation, it misleads us on what we should do, on what is our prescribed duty. Therefore, it's important for a person to understand karmani, prescribed duties, or activities which are assigned to us. Now the question, of course, I'm not going to cover it today, but you should ask this question yourself. How do we decide what are my prescribed duties? How do I know what are my prescribed duties? Oh, that's the big question, right? That's the $64 million. That's the one everyone really wants to know. They don't want to know about the class. Answer this one. Well, first you should sweat.